I'm Kathy Schaefer, and this is Parents Corner on AACPS TV. Each month we talk about a topic of interest to parents like us. This month, and to celebrate National Children's Book Week, we focus on fostering readers and writers. It's only logical that in today's technology age, more and more of our curriculum is focused there. That's great, but good old-fashioned reading and writing skills are still paramount for our students. In fact, studies show that voluntary independent reading, or the reading students choose to do on their own time, equals greater academic success. We spoke with Ms. Davis from the Elementary Reading and Integrated Literacy Office to discuss how our school reading curriculum is designed and tips to keep students in books. So hi, Ms. Davis. Can you tell us about the Elementary Reading Office?
Yes. The Elementary Reading and Integrated Literacy Office, which is our new title, our job is to write the curriculum and the assessments for the elementary grades. We collaborate with kindergarten, and we also do grades 1 through 5. But our vision is to provide a variety of literacy opportunities for our students that integrate with some of the content areas. And we do that by communicating with all the stakeholders, all the content offices, to make sure that the content is relevant and developmentally appropriate. We communicate with the public, as we're doing now. We talk to parents, to reading teachers, to principals. We provide resources and professional development at the school level for our leaders as well as for our classroom teachers. We evaluate all of the reading materials and curriculums that we purchase, as well as write the new curriculum, and we advocate for all the things that are good for our kids as far as literacy.
Great. Well, obviously reading is important, but can you tell us why it's so important for students, maybe what sort of skills that they gain?
Students that read become functional adults. They can read their prescription bottles. They can fill out an application and receive a job that's a little bit better than someone that's applying for a job that doesn't require reading skills. I mean, that's something I think we all talk about all the time. The job market is very limited for an adult that's unable to read. Reading develops the mind. It also promotes inquiry. If you have questions and you're interested in a particular topic, the best way to find the answers to your questions is to read. And that makes students a little bit more, I'm looking for a really good word, but it develops a better self-esteem. It makes them in charge of their own learning. They're excited about what they're learning. They're excited to go further than maybe what their teacher is instructing them on. And it also just makes them more aware of the things that they need to know in order to be a functional adult. There's tons of research out there that students that read spell better and they write better. There's a correlation between all three of those. There was a research study done recently that shows that students that have trouble reading certain words, when they're given a passage with those words in it and they practice reading them, they automatically learn to spell those words better. So there is a big correlation with that. The biggest correlation, I think, is students that read have better oral language skills. They're able to articulate their ideas. They're able to articulate what they've read and have conversations about it, ask questions. These are all the things that we take for granted, that, you know, this is what adults do. As you learn, as you grow older, you can have conversations about things that interest you. But can you imagine if a child or an adult is unable to access the information that they need in order to be a functional adult? Another thing I would love to mention, and I think we talked about this before, is in the reading world. In our office, reading is not word calling. Reading is understanding what you're reading. And a lot of times parents tell us, children, oh, my child can read this at age 2, or my child can read this at age 3. And a lot of times they can read it, but are they able to actually answer questions, have a conversation about what they're reading? Because reading begins with memorization. All of those things that we just do because parents naturally spend time with their child reading their favorite books over and over. The biggest thing is that think about the news and all of the global information that we need as functional adults. Is it even safe to open your door each and every day? Children need to be able to read that. Adults need to be able to read that. It's a comfort. There's actually research out that students that tend to misbehave in the classroom tend to have lower reading skills than those that do not. Because once again, you go back to that self-esteem. They're acting out because they're having trouble with their reading. So reading is just important for a variety of, we can research for days. There's just tons of research on it. But as parents, we know the importance of reading daily, as well as providing that opportunity for our children at home.
Well, you mentioned reading daily, and we always see the statistic that you should be reading to your children 20 minutes a night. Where exactly does that come from?
There's research that indicates that the minimum is 20 minutes a night. And I constantly tell parents, as a classroom teacher, as well as when I was a reading teacher, 20 minutes a night is the bare minimum. If your child's having trouble with reading, you may want to spend a little bit more time reading with them. But I will say, a child that starts reading 20 minutes a night in kindergarten, there is a lot of research that shows not only are they doing better academically, they're doing better in writing, they're doing better in math and all the other content areas because they've had that exposure. But more importantly, most of the brain research occurs before the age of 3. So can you imagine if you're reading or reading to, I'm sure reading with your child or reading in utero, you know, I'm sure both of us, we've read to our babies before they were born. That phonemic awareness that children get from that early reading provides them with the foundation for them that when they begin kindergarten, they're on a fast track to reading. Phonemic awareness is, you know, something like nursery rhymes and finger plays and reading the signs off of the KFC or the McDonald's signs. Those are things that we naturally would like children to have that exposure to before they start school. It's not always a book that you're reading. It's a variety of things out there that they can read. But that experience of 20 minutes a night at the bare minimum, and that's them reading as they get older, and as they're younger, you're reading to them. It promotes all the things we talked about previously, but it also promotes that positive self-esteem, that confidence in their ability to talk about what they're reading, to question things that they're interested in, and to just be more comfortable at their grade level.
And does it matter as they grow what they're reading, if some children have an interest in comic books or graphic novels, or just the act of reading itself?
I think it's just the act of reading. I still remember reading some things I probably shouldn't have been reading growing up because I was in a household where my mother did read, and she was reading some magazines. They weren't too risque, but I remember they were there. It was reading material, and that's how I started. Then, of course, I graduated to Nancy Drew.
Yeah.
But I mean, reading the back of the cereal box. I still see children doing that in the morning, and I think that's awesome. And those companies have actually started to make sure that the back of the cereal box has a little bit more for kids to engage in as they're reading as well. So, no, it does not matter.
And do you have any advice, because I obviously hear this from some of my friends, if you have a parent that says, my child just doesn't like to read, you know, are you stuck, or are there things that you could do?
Usually a child that's having trouble reading is a poor reader. Not always, but a lot of times they're having trouble. So you need to make that environment a little bit more positive. What are they interested in? Little boys may be interested in a particular athlete that's, you know, a particular sport that they're interested in, as well as girls. Doing research on that particular athlete, doing research on that particular sport, and then finding books that are aligned with their interests, and you can read with them. There's actually a series of books out that the parent reads one page and the student reads the next page, so it's the level is easier for them to read. On the internet now, there's so many things. Newsella is probably one of the better websites now that you can go and find news articles, and you can change the level of the article to match the level of the student. And we use that a lot in our social studies and science classes. But there are ways to find their interests and to find text, books, articles, things that they're interested in. And start small. You don't want to give a child a chapter book. You know, start with something small, short stories, poems. Actually, poetry is probably the least, it's something that's short, fast, and it builds confidence pretty quickly. So we talked a little bit earlier about nursery rhymes. We start with that, in the early grades because they understand the phonemic awareness and the rhyme. But starting small and building their confidence is probably just as important as finding something in their interest.
Great. And I see you brought some brochures.
Yes.
Is this for classroom level reading, and how is that designed?
Yes. So this year we have implemented a full force in K through second grade called guided reading. So about an hour, maybe an hour and 15 minutes, depends on the particular classroom. Teachers are teaching students directly at their reading level. We use Fontes and Pinnell benchmark system, which is an assessment tool that aligns directly with instruction. And we can find out that student's independent level, that means a text that they can read by themselves. We can find their instructional level, which is a level where there's a little bit of challenge. That's where the teacher should be providing support. And we can even find frustration, like where do they hit that wall where they're unable to understand what they're reading, which that means that's a read aloud or a book that they read with someone else. And because we know their levels, parents have requested some support. So we have these brochures where there are actual support for depending on what level that your child is in. Something to really be cognizant of is that each level has different characteristics. For example, level E, which is typically the first level in first grade, that's when contractions are introduced. So teachers can teach that at level E to prepare that child to be able to read that text a little bit more independently.
If a parent does not know what their child's level is that an easy question to follow up with the teacher?
Yes, at the conferences, definitely ask your teacher, ask for these particular guides, but don't just ask for the guide that your child is in currently. Make sure you get the next one because students move at different paces through the guides. But there's a lot of there's questions that you can ask. There's support that you can give because a lot of times children can read at a higher level than they comprehend. This benchmark system tells us exactly which level they're at where they're comprehending as well as being able to word call and read the actual text. And so parents may find that those levels change a little bit from what we've done in the past, but it's very prescriptive, it's very explicit, and it's moving our kids forward.
And because there are so many new reading initiatives happening, which are very exciting in the schools and in the classrooms right now, if parents have questions and want to find additional resources, is that something that your office makes available?
We can make that available. Each spring, we create a summer reading list in collaboration with the library. So we have some text that is appropriate for that particular grade level. There is not a way, there is something called Google. You can Google a text and just Google what is the reading level of this text. And pretty much about 80% of the books will come up and tell you what level it's at. So parents can make a little bit more informed decisions about it. Those summer brochures talk about texts that are at the interest level of those grades. So you still may have to look and determine if that is a title that your child can read independently.
Great. And with summer coming, this has been such great information. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
With summer break just around the corner, reading and writing don't need to take a break as well. Visit one of our local library branches to join their summer reading club, which kicks off in late May. The club features reading lists, library events, and take-home reading logs to earn free prizes. I'm Kathy Schaefer, and this was Parents Corner. Email us at parentscornertv@gmail.com with feedback or dates for upcoming events at your school. And like our Facebook page to stay up to date on show topics. Thanks for watching.